Hello everyone, it's DuckFaden07. Today we are playing Esper Merkblade again. So this is a deck, Esper deck playing Stoneforge Mystic, Orcish Bowmasters, Murktide Regent, and Subtlety as our threats and creatures. So we are trying to support these creatures, especially Murktide, with 8 cantrips, a lot of removal, 3 Fatal Push, 3 Prismatic Ending, but also Subtlety there to stop creatures from entering the battlefield for a turn at least, put them on top of the library, and Teferi is there for the bounce, Bowmaster is there for a ping, and Sword of Fire Ice can also sometimes kill a creature. And there is also Caldra that stops creatures from attacking you and does that very well. On the sideboard we have additional removal like Dam, Celestial Purge, especially for the Scum matchup, and Blood Moon. Third, Subtlety, some dress downs, one Flusterstorm, Chalice of the Void, another Equipment, and Path of Peril, and 3 ley lines. This is the biggest change from the last video, addition of 3 ley lines, especially for the graveyard decks like Dredge is a bit popular at the moment. I played couple of games with it, but especially against Murktide and Scam. Okay, so that's it. I did a couple of 4-1 leagues with this deck, and this one should have been like 5-0, but I wasn't very serious in that match and kept a really mediocre hand. If my opponent had a pretty bad hand, if I just mulliganed, I would probably get the trophy. But yeah, the league was fun and it was very I think it was interesting to watch. So let's see. First match was against Hammer Time. Opponent goes for the Stoneforge, finds the hammer. I have a pretty good hand, counterspell ending. I decide not to ending the Stoneforge here. They ended up having the Caldra, but only one white sword. This means I'm like pretty free to use um, the prismatic ending. They don't have a protector spell, and I use the counter spell here to counter their Colossus Hammer. So I went for a prismatic ending, but decided to fetch the Rafine Tower, so I have access to the black mana too. Unfortunately, I don't have the Godless Shrine in this deck. It's just too awkward for a deck to play it. I luckily I had another prismatic ending, and I played Stoneforge Mystic to find my Caldra, which then can very well block their constructs next turn. Opponent had Needle on one ring, but that was a complete fail. I don't play that, so I was holding my Sauron Ransom and Caldra's complete. I mean Stoneforge activation. I played the ransom in response to the creation to their Urza Saga activation. I choose a bottom pile and I get the ending and Stoneforge. This was pretty good for me. So when also Stoneforge became my ring bearer, and I don't know what happened. My opponent maybe forgot that I have Caldra in hand, but they attacked with the construct token, and I just blocked, killing their token. So that was a punt from the opponent. Then I played another Sun Ransom to get the second level of the Ring Bearer ability, and I was able to attack with Stoneforge and loot some cards. So I had Prismatic Ending here. I was holding the Consider, Spell Pierce plus Subtlety, so I was pretty safe. Opponent attacking with Inkpot Nexus. Went double Consider end of their turn, and took another counterspell in hand. And now I again decided to stay back with the Caldra and just attack with the Stoneforge and do the looting. They can only block with their Stoneforge, which is fine. I'm not dealing damage, but I'm looting, so I'm very happy with this. I play another Stoneforge, I get my sword, and holding Subtlety, Pierce, plus Counterspell for their turn. So opponent game plan was like attack me with Inkpot Nexus and then try to equip a color to it. At any time I had the opportunity to just play the subtlety and block this Inkpot Nexus. I didn't want to do it, I didn't feel it was necessary. I wanted to wait them to tap out. So now I was able to start attacking. I played as safe as possible and I only attacked with my Stoneforge equipped with a sword. Opponent continued attacking with the Ink Nexus. Now the board was clear, so I attack with everything. This means this is a 2-turn clock. I also get to draw a card, get a land, draw a consider. Opponent now goes for a kill, tries to equip the Caldra complete. It's exactly 10 inflict damage if I don't have a response to this, but of course I have the subtlety for blocks. So opponent uses all their mana, but I play the subtlety and to block Nexus, and I have a lethal swing back, so that was the game. Okay, let's check out the game 2. This was a one-lander, and I decided to mulligan to 6. On 6 cards, I had a pretty decent hand. I decided to ending this hammer immediately. When they play hammer, this usually means they have pure steel paladin in hand. So opponent, it wasn't. I think that wasn't the case here, but opponent played Gingerbrute, and I'm definitely happier with Colossus Hammer out of the field. So I just played the Refined Tower. I was holding a counterspell. And the entire time, opponent plays the needle, so I use this opportunity to counter this. And then again, I have Pet to Peril and then so I'm just kind of hoping for them to play more creatures so I can use one of my spells. Opponent attacking me with Nexus. It doesn't mean too much. I let them resolve the Paladin so I can use my Pet of Peril and also still have 2 mana open to hold the counterspell on their turn. So I just kill everything, Paladin and Gingerbrute with Pet and just continue holding the counterspell. Now I have also the Preordain on my turn and then entire time. Okay, I find the Orcish Bowmasters, play the Stoneforge, grab the Caldra. When you have the Caldra against Hammer Time, you're pretty safe, but of course the Inkmat Nexus is now the biggest trouble, but this clock from Inkmat Nexus is just not that fast. I make them use their protection spell here to protect their Inkmat Nexus, but now I started attacking and I put also Murktide to the field, which means next turn I have lethal damage, and that is the game. Okay, so pretty quick win in a in match 1 against Hammer Time. Let's check out match 2. Okay, in the match 2 I was playing first, kept a pretty good hand. So 2 lands, 2 Bowmasters, 2 Fatal Push, consider basically ideal. I was playing against was it a scam? I'm not sure. I decided to keep the fetch on top. Opponent discards one of my Bowmasters, and that was fine. Yeah, it was a scam. Opponent goes for Croxa. I decide to discard one of my Fatal Pushes, and that's it. Didn't play the Bowmaster. I was holding the Bowmasters in case they play their Bowmaster or Ragavan. Just didn't uh, feel like just playing this Orcish Bowmasters into their Bowmaster. So I didn't crack a fetch here. I was holding the fetch for a couple of turns, so I can use the Fatal Push on Grief if necessary. But now I decide to crack it, play the Subtlety on their Grief, and now I had a Fatal Push for the Doughty, holding the Counterspell and Orcish Bowmasters in their turn. Opponent now goes for a hard cast grief, and then I use the counter spell and play the bowmasters now to try to pressure their life total. They were already on 12 life. I attacked for 5, putting them on 7 and preordained another subtlety on top. Now my opponent tries to go for the Fury, but I have another subtlety for the kill, and that is the game. Okay, so let's check out the game 2. Okay, I boarded in the Leyline of the Voids. We'll see my sideboard plan here. This time I decided to remove all the Stoneforges and the Spell Pierce, plus 2 Considers, and all the equipment. I had a lot of sideboard cards I wanted in, and this was the only way I could do it the easiest way. Okay, so opponent attacks with Doughty here. So this was my plan. End of turn, I was trying to play the Teferi, and yeah, I really expected them to have the Bowmasters. So my plan was play the Dress Down end of turn. This means Dress Down is on the field the entire turn. So this means when I play the Teferi on my turn, they will probably play Bowmasters in response, but they won't get a ping and they won't get a token. Then I can bounce the Doughty and then shock in the Watery Grave on the next turn, play my Bowmasters to kill their Bowmasters and still have the ending for their replayed Doughty. So basically, ideal situation for me. So I was thinking like two turns in advance, and I knew exactly what my opponent is going to do, and I knew they were going to attack the Teferi, and I knew I'm going to Bowmaster their Bowmaster and the Prismatic Ending the Dati. So this was all just going by plan, and they also um, I have the Leyline of the Void on the field, which means their Undying spell don't work. So now I had the Prismatic Ending and the 6/6 Murktide, which means even if they have this Blood Moon, still they have to deal with the 6/6 Murktide. I also find Island from the top of the library, which wasn't really relevant. I only needed the planes in case I draw the Celestial Purge, and I was just hoping for the opponent to not be able to deal with Murktide. And that was, yeah, exactly what happened. They had a Fury, but they didn't have, they just weren't able to stop the Murktide, and that was the game. Okay, so that was match 2 against Red Black Scam. So let's check out the match 3. In the match 3, I was playing first again and had pretty awkward hand. 2 counterspells and Murktide. I think this is kind of keepable. Definitely depends what I'll be playing against, but yeah, this is the nightmare, absolute nightmare. Opponent plays Delighted Halfling into my 2 counterspells. And also, I don't know why people do this. So, I mean, they play the Vrenna 6 first and then play the fetch, which means the Vrenna 6 has to survive the fetching process in order to get the land back. It doesn't make any sense. So, unfortunately, I was in an extremely bad situation here, and I just didn't have almost any chance, but my opponent forgot to pay the mana for the One Ring with the Halfling ability, so I was able to use the counterspell, and that really changed everything in this game, and made me. I was able to come back because of it, and now I had the subtlety for their Omnat, which was great. Opponent fetched and used the Wren. I used my preordain. I was hoping for another subtlety, but I didn't get it. I got a second Murktide, so I decided to play the Murktide as a 4/4, hold another instant in the graveyard to be able to play another Murktide. So now I was able to kill the Teferi, push the Halfling, and now my counter spell was online again. So my opponent decided not to play anything on their turn, and I went Sour Ransom end step, and they played the Solitude, which is fine. I'd rather have a Solitude on my Subtlety than on the Murktide. Opponent splits it like this, and I decided I'm very happy with this, and I choose land and subtlety. Was very good. I should have probably exiled the Sauron Ransom too to make Murktide a 6/6. So now I wasn't able to kill Vren 6 in a shot. My opponent didn't play anything, so I just passed the turn, drawing the land, playing the Stoneforge Mystic, getting Kaldra. Yeah, I was going for a Vren 6 here. Maybe I should have probably gone attack phase this turn, because my opponent had the One Ring, so I wasn't able to counter that because of the Halfling. This time they didn't misplay. Okay, so opponent decides to just ping with Vren 6 because it would just die to the Murktide attack. So still I was holding Subtlety. I had a Kaldra, and I also had the Sauron's Ransom. I put Kaldra into play, and then found also Orcish Bowmaster. I decided to play everything out, ping them to face, put them on 14. Also they have 2 damage on their turn from the One Ring. And I played Preordain. Preordain finds me at the Fairy. I played the Fairy resolves, I bounce the Solitude, and this means even if they have even if they have Otavara, I think it's still very close to the lethal, and Otavara is basically the only thing they could have at this point. And I'm still holding the Subtlety in case they have something like Solitude or Omnat on their turn, and that's it. Okay, so let's check out game 2. Okay, so pretty medium hand, 2 Stoneforge, Fatal Push. Fatal Push is good against their Halfling. Let's see how I sideboarded in this match, shall we? Okay, so 1 Preordain out, 1 Bowmasters out, and 1 Teferi out. That's it. So no big sideboarding here, just 1 Subtlety in, 3rd Subtlety in, and 2 more cards. Okay, so a Stoneforge finds me a Sword of Fire Ice here. I play the land tapped. I didn't want to play the Raffine Tower. I was holding it in hand, hoping to cycle it if needed. Now I was able to put Caldera into play. I was holding the Bowmasters dress down for their turn, and still on when I untap on my turn, I had the opportunity to also play the sword, and now I pinged the Goblin Shaman. This means if they use the ability, I can ping it without attacking. So my opponent chooses not to discard anything. They play Omnat, gain some life. I gain some pings with the Bowmasters. They had a ring, but it was still an even game. I still had a lot of chance. I had Bowmasters and used 2 abilities to kill the Kikijiki, but they had the Wheel of Summer, drawing a card there. my creature lost the indestructible, and they traded with the omelette. This was fine by me because I had fire ice, and in this case, actually, fire ice prevailed over the one ring. They were too low on life and weren't able to preserve their life total. So I used the ring to kill the Wren and play another Bowmasters to ping the reflections of Kikijiki, and also played one of my Murktides as a 4/4, and had my opponent was on 8 life and had plenty of threats on the field, sword equipped, Murktide, Bowmasters, and also if I get the land I can equip the Caldra. My opponent had a lot of answers there. They bounced some stuff, but yeah, I was able to play the Bowmaster, kill the fairy, equip the sword, hold the subtlety in case they have interaction, and finish the game with the sword, and that was lethal. So that was it. Pretty interesting game. I won despite them having the ring and doing the ring stuff. Okay, so let's check out the last win of this league, and then we'll go check out the only loss from the league. I could have easily won that match if I just kept a better starting 7 in the last match. But yeah, that keep costed me the trophy. Okay, so this hand was pretty good. My opponent was on creativity, so we will see how that matchup went. I have a lot of interaction, spell pierces, bowmasters, subtlety. Yeah, I go for consider here. I kept the counter spell on top despite not having third land at the moment. But my hand was pretty good. One land is basically all I need to function. Opponent goes for a Teferi, but I decide to use the subtlety on it, so I can jam the Bowmasters and actually just start attacking the opponent. And I still have the second one in hand. They put Teferi on top, so they're probably just planning on replaying the Teferi next turn again. But now I had Bowmasters on the field, so it's a bit different situation. Okay, I was hoping to find another land so I can play Bowmasters plus Spears. That was the reason why I played the counterspell there. And yeah, so my opponent was low on cards, so I decided to just jam the Bowmasters here, continue attacking. Opponent, I put them to 9 life, and it still didn't draw a land, so I didn't have much options. I just played my Stoneforge, and opponent was only on 1 life at the moment. And before the Fable ability, they played the Binding, discarded the Pierce, and yeah, so they were in a top deck mode, just 0 cards in hand, and I had a 5 in my hand. So I was holding, I played the Stoneforge, I was holding the Pierce for their turn, attacking for 2. Pierce wasn't really that relevant anymore. But yeah, I was just hoping for them not to draw creativity for a couple of turns until I play out my Caldra. And again, my opponent finds another Dwarven Mine, which I don't really care about that much. So I go for a Caldra here, attack them for 7. They trade with my Orc Army. Yeah, and I put them to 4 life. And they didn't draw what they needed, and that was the game. So let's check out the game 2. Okay, so this was not a great hand, but a decent one. I actually misclicked here. I accidentally passed the turn, didn't play the preordain. I should have played the preordain here. It was the better option and not to go for the consider. But yeah, it's still fine. It's not that big problem. I go for consider here, and yeah, now I fetch for the fountain, keeping the purge on top and is holding the peers for their turn. I pass the turn, and on their upkeep, I uh, I had one mana open all the time. On their upkeep, I go use the purge to exile their Ren 6, but unfortunately, opponent had another one, which I wasn't able to pierce, so I had to let this resolve. And I wasn't looking very good in this situation. I did top deck Murktide, and I had Pierce backup, also Counterspell when I untap. So it was decent clock, but my opponent has immediate binding here to get rid of the Murktide, and it seemed like my opponent just had a bunch of lands, and I tried to pierce this Fable, but it didn't work out. So they resolved their Fable, but I wasn't still in a good situation. They had ran a lot of mana, a lot of cards in hand, and I didn't have much options, so I just went for the Fairy Bounce, draw a card. I found myself another land, which was good. So I wasn't in a good situation, but opponent was just on 9 life at this point, and they just had a bunch of lands trying to find a right stop deck. I start off with a Preordain and decided to hold the Bowmasters plus the Counterspell. Opponent didn't do anything. Again, I just went for the Bowmasters, holding the Counterspell. They used the Bolt on Bowmasters. Bowmasters was pretty weak in this situation, so I was pretty happy with them using the Bolt on it. And yeah, and now I played Stoneforge, find the sword, and pass the turn holding the counterspell. My opponent didn't have much, so on last turn, yeah, and I had another Stoneforge and a double counterspell this time, so it started to feel better and better. My chances were improving. My opponent was on 8, and I had Caldra in hand with a 2 counterspell backup. So once my opponent went to kill the Stoneforge, I decided to protect it. So they go ending, I counterspell the Stoneforge. I think just putting the Caldra was really important in this situation. I trade with my Orc Army token. If I block with Stoneforge, they can just pick me with Vran. So that wasn't an option. And yeah, now I got the Caldra. It was pretty incredible. Opponent didn't have the creativity still. Yeah, so now I was forced to attack Vren 6 because Vren was on 7 counters. And I passed the turn holding the subtlety plus the counterspell. Opponent finds the Teferi, but I have the subtlety to put it on top of their library. And now I had some damage on the field, Caldra with trample and the subtlety there. So they definitely needed something to survive this, and I put the sword on the field, equip on Caldra, and had the counterspell backup, so that was the game. Okay, so let's now check out the loss. It was also against Hammer Time. Hammer Time is a pretty good matchup for this deck. This deck has a lot of cheap interaction. I had to mulligan this 7 cards and then had to mulligan those 6 and kept a pretty decent 5. So I started off with Preordain, I kept both the Delta and the Bowmasters on top. My opponent finds the Caldera, but I have the Prismatic Ending here to get rid of Stoneforge. So I had to do this immediately because they would play the Caldera next turn. Okay, they play the Saga and decide not to do anything, but decide just make the construct token. And I had some options here. Of course, I was able to hold the counter spell. It didn't look like my opponent has a lot of stuff going on, so I decided just to jam the Murktide. It wasn't a good call, so if I had the counter spell up, I would probably be able to counter the Paladin, and this wouldn't happen. So that's how I lost the game 1. Okay, again a mulligans. I mulligan to 6. This I find this in 6. I bottom the second subtlety. So I go for a turn 2 Stoneforge. Stoneforge is very cool in this matchup, finding me the Caldera, and Caldera just completely blocks their entire deck. If they don't have some evasion, of course they have Gingerbrute, but I have some. I have other interaction too. Okay, so I just pass the turn. I didn't want to attack with the Caldera, I just decided to stay back with the Caldera. They find the hammer with their Steel Shaper's Gift, and that's it. Decided not to use it this turn, so end of turn I go for a Caldera and fetch my land. I get the Raffine's Tower, get a second white and a black mana. So I had multiple options here, but my plan was bounce the Gingerbrute and then use the Subtlety. It seemed like the Gingerbrute was only creature they had at the moment, so they put the Gingerbrute on top and I was able to use the Subtlety. They put the Gingerbrute on top now and played the second Sigarda's 8. But now I had a fatal push plus the counterspell for the Gingerbrute. And yeah, when I counterspelled that, opponent conceded. That was the game. That was Gingerbrute was their only hope. This game probably has some protection spell also and the hammer. Okay. Let's now check out the final game. I lost due to the very bad draws and keeping pretty mediocre 7 cards. I kept this hand because I had the Dam. Yeah, but my draws were really poor, and my opponent had was pretty good against them. And yeah, I mean them for the overload, it wasn't an option because I just wasn't able to let them resolve the Caldera, so I had to go for the dam, but opponent had a drum to make mana and Surge of Salvation. And now they put a Caldera on the field, plus also the Giver of Runes, which made it hard for me to uh, get rid of the Caldera. Even if I draw the removal, I have to kill the Giver first. So opponent hand was pretty bad. They didn't have anything but Caldera. If I mulligan this to a better hand, it would be just easy win. I didn't have much chance here. I needed the fairy into Prismatic Ending, and I did get the fairy actually. Yeah, so I played out Smite the Fairy, bounce the Giver, but find just another Bowmaster. This wasn't what I really needed at this point. Opponent plays the Surge of Salvation here. In response, I go for the Orcish Bowmasters. They equip the Paladin. I go for a full block, hoping to find another crazy top deck here or something like that. I had a hardcast Caldra available for the next turn. It was too late, and yeah, that was the game. So my opponent had a pretty bad hand that last game. If I just mulliganed those 7 cards or just didn't draw into bunch of lands, it would be a basically easy win. I just needed one prismatic ending or Teferi sooner, but it didn't happen, and yeah, that was it. So deck feels very good, very strong in a lot of popular matchups right now. Unfortunately, that keep costed me the trophy, but overall I had pretty good results with the deck, and I think it's really good. I'm really loving the Leyline of the Void addition from the last video. I added 3 Leyline of the Voids, and they have been pretty good. I boarded them in the Murktide matchup, in the Scam matchup, and in the all those graveyard dependent matchups, and it's just working so good. With the rest of the deck, even sometimes if you hardcast it for 4 mana, it can be very useful. Uh, I already done that multiple times. So that's it. So thank you for watching, and just a friendly reminder to click like, click subscribe, comment in the video, especially if you have some game experience with this build. And yeah, that's it for today, and goodbye.